Statement of Dalai Lama Incident. 21st April 2023. We, the undersigned Academy Scholars of Tibetan Studies, express our dismay over recent media coverage of an exchange between Tenzin Gyatso, exiled 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet, and a young boy in India at a public event. This included an edited video of the exchange that was created to give the impression of sexual misconduct on the part of the Dalai Lama, cynically misusing the momentum of the Hush Me Too movement for its own ends. But on the basis of watching a fuller video of the event, along with the representation of what happened by the boy himself, as well as his mother, we are not seeing here an incident of sexual misconduct. We urge news reporters to consider context carefully before projecting a highly charged interpretation onto something about which they have little knowledge. It is well known that the current Dalai Lama is physically playful with many of the people he meets, of all statuses and ages and genders, including when he embraced and tickled Bishop Desmond Tutu under the chin with humor and in friendship. We would also add that we have heard from a wide range of Tibetan specialists, colleagues, and friends that it is far from unusual for old folks in Tibetan societies to interact with children in many commonly recognized joking ways, including as the Dalai Lama did. These are not incidents of sexual abuse. Indeed, there have been recent, and very troubling and painful, cases of Tibetan Lamas committing sexual abuse, as has also occurred in other world religions repeatedly and for decades. We adamantly support the important work for justice and healing for children and other people who are the survivors of such abuse. But the current incident with the Dalai Lama is not an instance of sexual abuse, and it is harmful to everyone to claim that it is. Among many other things, to do so diminishes the voices of survivors who have courageously shared their stories and shined a light on systemic abuse, both in religious and many other contexts. The Dalai Lama has been a dedicated leader for his people and his nation over many decades of hardship and struggle. He has been an inspiring teacher of Buddhist compassion and an advocate for world peace, recognized with the Nobel Peace Prize. It is possible for anyone to act inappropriately or out of character. But in this instance, knowing the context of the particular incident, the personality of the Dalai Lama, his commitment to his monastic vows, and the many aspects of Tibetan culture at work in the event, we view that as highly unlikely. Instead, we understand the manipulated video and its dissemination to be an ill-intentioned attack on the authority of the Dalai Lama in his old age. Indeed, it is an attack on the global Tibetan and Himalayan community as a whole, and on the international standing of Tibetan Buddhism. We stand with the Tibetan community both inside and outside China today, who have been demonstrating with dignity and restraint, but still in anger and deep sadness, about what they see as a deliberate and strategic effort to tarnish the institution of the Dalai Lama. With them, we urge global news networks to be cautious before making snap judgments, bowing to prejudice and buying into salacious stories, and to make the careful investigation of the sources of their information on such sensitive matters their highest priority. Jeffrey Barstow, Associate Professor, School of History, Philosophy, and Religion, Oregon State University. Daniel Bironski, Associate Professor, Institute of Asian Studies, Charles University. Universita Karlova. Benjamin Bogan, Associate Professor of Asian Studies, Skidmore College Katia Buffetrel École Pratique des Hautes Études, Paris. Josai Cabezon, Dalai Lama Professor of Tibetan Buddhism and Cultural Studies, University of California, Santa Barbara. Kathy Cantwell, Associate Faculty Member, Faculty of Asian and Middle Eastern Studies, University of Oxford. Hildegard Diemberger, Research Director, Mongolia and Inner Asia Studies Unit, University of Cambridge. Jacob Dalton Khyentse Foundation Distinguished University Professor in Tibetan Buddhism, University of California, Berkeley. James Duncan Gentry, Assistant Professor, Department of Religious Studies, Stanford University. David Germano, Professor of Tibetan Buddhist Studies, University of Virginia. Janet Gyatso Hershey, Professor of Buddhist Studies and Associate Dean for Faculty and Academic Affairs, the Divinity School, Harvard University. Catherine Hartman, Assistant Professor of Religious Studies, University of Wyoming. Hanna Havnevik, Faculty of Humanities, University of Oslo. Lama Jab, Lecturer in Tibetan, Oxford University. Sarah Jacobi, Associate Professor, Northwestern University. Matthew Kapaste, Director d'Etudes, Emerite, École Pratique des Hautes Études. Samton Karmai, Director of Research Emeritus, Centre National de la Recherche Scientifique. Donald Lopez Arthuri, Link Distinguished University Professor of Buddhist and Tibetan Studies, Department of Asian Languages and Cultures, University of Michigan. Robert Mayer, University of Oxford. Carol Megranahan, Professor of Anthropology and Chair of the Department of Anthropology, University of Colorado. Anna Mokam Mohinder Bra Sambhi, Chair of Indian Music, Hub, Alpert School of Music. Jayakumala Orofino, Professor of Tibetan Studies and President of the Center for Buddhist Studies, Department of Asian, African and Mediterranean Studies, University of Naples. Francois Pomerit, Director of Research Emeritus, Centre de Recherche sur les Civilisations des LSE Orientale. Andrew Quintman, Associate Professor, Religion Department, Wesleyan University. Charles Ramble, Research Professor, Director d'Etudes in Tibetan History and Philology, École Pratique des Hautes Études, Paris. Sciences et Letters University. Francois Robin, Professor of Tibetan Language and Literature, Institut National des Langues et Civilisations Orientales. Ulrich Rosler, Professor of Tibetan and Himalayan Studies, The Oriental Institute, Oxford University. Peter Schweiger, Principal Investigator, Institute of Oriental and Asian Studies, Bonn University. Heather Stoddard, Professor Emerita, Institut National des Langues et Civilisations Orientales. Wolfson College and Oriental Institute, University of Oxford. Dominic D. Z. Sur, Associate Professor in Religious Studies, Department of History, Utah State University. Andrew Taylor, Assistant Professor, Religious Studies, the College of Saint Scholastica. Zaring Topgile, Department of Political Science and International Studies, University of Birmingham. Gray Tuttle, Leila Hadley Luce, Professor of Modern Tibetan Studies, Columbia University. Nicole Willock, Associate Professor of Asian Religions, Old Dominion University. Emily A. Professor, Department of Geography, University of Colorado Boulder.